He came to Miami International Airport to welcome the woman who would secure his empire. Then Dominic Vale saw the ex he had abandoned 8 months earlier, 7 months pregnant, bruised around the throat, and running for her life. Have you ever pushed someone away because loving them felt more dangerous than losing them? Beyond the smoked glass, a private jet touched down beneath a sky heavy with rain. Inside the crowded terminal, Claire Bennett gripped a broken canvas bag with one hand and protected her unborn child with the other. She had no money, no safe place to go, and no reason to believe Dominic would save her. What happened next would expose a traitor, destroy a powerful alliance, and force a feared Mafia boss to confront the true cost of choosing power over love. Stay until the end. Like this video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. He already knew the baby was yours. The words remained between Dominic Vale and Claire Bennett, sharp enough to cut through the noise of Miami International Airport. For one suspended second, Dominic could not hear the departure announcements, the crying child near the security line, or the wheels of 100 suitcases crossing polished tile. He saw only Claire's face pale beneath the fluorescent lights and the bruises circling her throat. 8 months earlier, he had forced himself to believe she no longer existed. 6 hours before seeing her again, that lie had still felt almost convincing. Morning had come slowly over Biscayne Bay. A wall of gray clouds pressed low above Miami, swallowing the tops of the tallest towers and turning the ocean into a sheet of dark metal. From the glass living room of Dominic's Brickell penthouse, Port Miami looked distant and silent. Container cranes stood over the harbor like enormous black skeletons. Cargo ships moved through the channel with patient certainty, each one following a route Dominic had studied, purchased, or quietly controlled. Dominic stood barefoot on the cold stone floor, holding a cup of coffee he had not touched. At 36, he had built a life in which almost nothing happened without his permission. Ships arrived when he expected them. Customs officers looked the other way when they were paid to look away. Men who owed him money remembered their debts. Men who considered betraying him usually reconsidered before making the mistake permanent. His home reflected the same discipline. The furniture was expensive, severe, and arranged with mathematical precision. There were no family photographs on the walls, no gifts displayed on shelves, no books left open, no coat thrown over the back of a chair. Nothing suggested that another person had ever lived there, laughed there, or remained long enough to leave a mark. Dominic preferred it that way. At least that was what he told himself. His phone vibrated on the kitchen island. A message from Evelyn Cross appeared on the screen. Landing at 4:20. No flowers, no reporters. My father's men will already make this unpleasant enough. Dominic read the message twice. Evelyn had never pretended their engagement was romantic. That was one of the qualities he respected about her. She was intelligent enough to understand what the marriage meant, and practical enough not to demand more. Her father, Victor Cross, controlled a network of pharmaceutical warehouses and medical distribution companies extending from Chicago through half the Midwest. Some of those businesses were legal. Others were legal only on paper. Dominic controlled access to the water. A marriage between them would create a clean route from overseas manufacturers to inland markets. Victor would gain reliable entry through South Florida. Dominic would gain trucks, storage facilities, political influence, and a distribution system large enough to make his competitors irrelevant. No love was necessary. No trust was expected. The arrangement required only signatures, public appearances, and the ability to sit beside each other at dinner without showing contempt. Dominic placed the phone face down. Behind him, the private elevator opened with a quiet chime. Mason Reed entered without waiting to be announced. He wore a dark blue suit and carried a leather folder beneath one arm. His brown hair was combed neatly away from his forehead. At 40, Mason had the polished appearance of a corporate attorney and the instincts of a man who had survived 7 years inside Dominic's organization by noticing danger before anyone else. The Fontaine Royale confirmed the ballroom, Mason said. 40 guests. Victor is bringing 12 people. 6 family, 4 security, 2 legal advisors. Dominic finally lifted the coffee to his mouth. It had gone cold. Who is handling the kitchen staff? Grant has the names. Everyone has been checked twice. Check them again. Mason placed the folder on the island. You hired Grant because you trust him. I hired Grant because he is thorough. Trust is what people ask for when they want you to stop looking. Mason's mouth curved slightly. That philosophy must make mornings peaceful. It makes them predictable. Dominic opened the folder. The engagement dinner was scheduled for Thursday night. The seating chart showed 2 powerful families arranged around white linen tables beneath crystal chandeliers. Victor Cross would sit at Dominic's right. Evelyn would sit at his left. Judges, attorneys, shipping executives, and political intermediaries would fill the remaining seats. A celebration for the newspapers, a merger for everyone in the room. Dominic studied every name. Move Councilman Reeves away from Victor, he said. Reeves drinks too much and talks when he feels ignored. Mason made a note. Anything else? The North Service entrance needs another camera. Grant already added one. Then add a second. Mason watched him for a moment. You have been preparing for this dinner for 8 months. Dominic closed the folder. That is why it will go correctly. And after Thursday, the cross trucks begin moving through our inland warehouses. We expand the cold storage facility near the river. Within 6 months, we control every major route from the port to Atlanta. Mason nodded, but his gaze shifted toward the far side of the kitchen. A white ceramic mug sat alone behind the glass door of a cabinet. It was ordinary cheap compared with everything around it and slightly chipped along the rim. Dominic followed Mason's eyes. Is there a problem? No. Mason looked back at him. I thought you removed everything that belonged to her. The room seemed to tighten around the final word. Dominic did not need to ask who Mason meant. You thought wrong. Mason's expression remained neutral. Victor's investigators asked again whether Claire Bennett could become an issue. She is gone. They want certainty. Then tell them what I told you. Mason held Dominic's gaze. That she was an employee whose position was eliminated. Yes. And nothing more. Dominic's fingers tightened around the cold coffee cup. Nothing more. Mason accepted the answer with a small nod. He had always been good at recognizing the edge of Dominic's patience. I will have the car downstairs at 1:30. When the elevator doors closed behind him, silence returned to the penthouse. Dominic stood motionless. Then he opened the cabinet and looked at the white mug. Claire had bought it from a small grocery store near the river because she refused to drink coffee from the heavy black cups Dominic preferred. She said they looked like something designed for funerals. The memory came without permission. Claire sitting at the kitchen island before sunrise, her dark blonde hair still damp from the shower, his white shirt falling past her thighs. Both hands wrapped around the chipped mug as a summer storm rolled over the bay. Lightning flashed beyond the windows. Claire flinched. Dominic noticed. You are afraid of storms. I dislike surprises. Lightning is not a surprise during hurricane season. It is loud and unnecessary. So are you. She looked at him over the rim of the mug. That might be the closest thing to flirting you have ever attempted. I was not flirting. Of course not. Her smile had been soft, almost private. Dominic remembered wanting to cross the kitchen and touch her. He remembered not moving. That morning had followed the only night they spent together in his home. There had been other nights in his office when distance disappeared and professional boundaries became meaningless, but that one had felt different. Claire had fallen asleep beside him. Dominic had remained awake, staring at the ceiling, disturbed by how natural her breathing sounded in the dark. She had left before breakfast. The mug remained. Dominic shut the cabinet. Claire Bennett had joined his organization 3 years earlier after uncovering a $500,000 theft inside one of his freight companies. She had been hired to review shipping accounts. Within 6 weeks, she understood his financial structure better than men who had helped create it. She was quiet during meetings, but never timid. When others raised their voices, Claire lowered hers. When someone tried to hide a lie behind complicated numbers, she found the single calculation that made the deception collapse. The first time she challenged Dominic publicly, 12 men had been sitting around a conference table. A shipment of medical equipment had disappeared between Nassau and Miami. Dominic's operations manager blamed customs officials and insisted the cargo had never reached the port. Claire placed 3 invoices in front of Dominic. The shipment arrived. The manager stared at her. "You have been here 2 months. That has nothing to do with the invoices. You are accusing me of lying in front of Mr. Vale. I am showing him that the fuel charges for the receiving trucks were submitted at 2:13 in the morning. Those trucks only move when cargo reaches the warehouse." The manager turned to Dominic. "She does not understand how this operation works." Claire opened another file. "I also found payments to a company owned by your wife's brother. The company has no employees, no office, and no reason to receive $90,000 from us." Silence filled the room. Dominic looked at the manager. "Leave." The man never returned. After the meeting, Claire gathered her papers as if nothing unusual had happened. Dominic remained at the head of the table. "You embarrassed him. He stole from you. You could have informed me privately. You invited him to lie publicly." She met Dominic's eyes without fear. He should have dismissed her. Instead, he said, "Show me everything." That was how it began. Not with desire, with numbers. Then came the late nights, shared meals eaten over financial reports, quiet arguments about risk, long silences that became comfortable before either of them noticed. Claire learned that Dominic rubbed the scar through his left eyebrow when he was tired. Dominic learned that she counted the steps from the elevator to his office when she was anxious. She never asked about the bodies behind his reputation. He never asked why she had no family photographs in her apartment. They respected the locked doors in each other, until they did not. One night, Claire found him alone in his office after a meeting had ended badly. A rival crew had attacked one of Dominic's warehouses. 2 men were dead. Grant had been shot in the shoulder. Dominic stood at the window staring down at the harbor. Claire entered without knocking. "You should go home," he said. "So should you. I am working. You have been reading the same page for 20 minutes. Dominic looked down at the document in his hand. She was right. Claire walked closer. "You cannot calculate your way backward. I can calculate who gave them the warehouse schedule. That is not what I meant." Her voice was careful. It made him angry. "Do not try to understand me. I am not trying." "You are." Claire stopped a few feet away. "You think if you keep moving, nothing can reach you. You think control is the same as safety." Dominic turned toward her. "Be careful." "With what?" "With believing you know me. I know you have not slept in 2 days. That is not knowing me. I know you sent Grant's wife to a private hospital before anyone told her he was injured. I know you paid the family of the man who died tonight enough money to leave the state. I know you stand at that window whenever something happens that you cannot fix." Dominic's expression hardened. Claire stepped closer anyway. "You are not as empty as you want people to believe." He kissed her because he wanted to silence her. That was the lie he used afterward. The truth was that he had wanted to kiss her for months. For a brief season, they existed between definitions. They were never seen together in public. Claire still called him Mr. Vale during meetings. Dominic never gave her gifts or promises. They shared dinners, quiet nights, and conversations that ended only when morning entered through the office windows. Claire asked for nothing. That should have made the relationship safe. Instead, it made her more dangerous, because Dominic began wanting to give her things she had never requested. Time, protection, a place beside him. Then Victor Cross's representatives arrived in Miami. They examined every company, every account, and every person close enough to influence Dominic. They asked about loyalty weaknesses, lovers, and family. Mason brought Dominic the report. Claire's name was marked in red. "She is unprotected leverage," Mason said. They were alone in the office. Dominic read the page without expression. "She handles accounts. She also spends 3 nights a week in this building after everyone else leaves. She works." Mason leaned back in his chair. "Victor's people are not stupid. What are they asking that there be no emotional complications before the merger?" Dominic looked toward the harbor. "And if I refuse, they question whether you can protect the partnership." Claire entered the office the following evening at 7:20. Dominic remembered the exact time because the clock had been directly above her shoulder. She carried a folder against her chest. "You asked to see me." He stood with his back to her. "Yes." Claire waited. Dominic had planned the conversation carefully. He would keep it short. He would provide enough money for several years. He would make the separation clean. "Your position has been eliminated," he said. "Your final payment has been transferred." Silence. Dominic stared through the window. A cargo ship moved slowly beyond the harbor lights. "Is this about my work?" Claire asked. "No." "Did I make a mistake?" "No." "Then turn around." He did not move. Dominic. Her use of his first name nearly broke the structure he had built around the moment. "Leave the building, Claire." "What happened?" "Nothing happened. That is not an answer. It is the only one you are receiving." He heard her set the folder on the desk. "You could have sent Mason to do this." "I chose not to." Why Dominic said nothing. Claire's breathing changed. She understood. "This is about the Cross family. He should have denied it." He remained silent. Claire gave a soft laugh that held no amusement. "They asked you to remove me. My decisions are my own." "Then this is worse." Dominic closed his eyes for half a second. Claire came closer. "You are throwing me away because caring about someone makes you uncomfortable. You were an employee." The sentence entered the room like a blade. Claire stopped moving. Dominic felt the damage immediately, but did not take the words back. When she answered, her voice was quieter. "Look at me and say that." He kept his face toward the window. "Your access has been terminated. Security will escort you out if necessary." Claire stood behind him for several seconds. He could hear the small, uneven breaths she was trying to control. Then her voice steadied. "One day you're going to discover that cutting away every weakness doesn't make you strong. It only leaves you alone." Her footsteps crossed the office. The door closed softly. Dominic did not turn around until the elevator had carried her out of the building. The folder she had brought remained on his desk. Inside was a report showing that Mason had approved unusually large payments to a freight company in Tampa. Claire had marked the transfers for further review. Dominic glanced through the pages that night. Mason explained the payments as emergency storage fees after a warehouse inspection. Dominic accepted the answer. He never asked Claire what she had suspected. 8 months passed. Dominic buried himself in the Cross negotiations. He changed residences. He expanded the port operation. He allowed Evelyn's name to appear beside his in carefully placed newspaper photographs. He did not contact Claire. He did not ask anyone to watch her. He told himself that checking would defeat the purpose of removing her. On the afternoon Evelyn was scheduled to arrive, Cole waited in the underground garage beside a black armored sedan. Rainwater glistened on the concrete ramp behind him. "Airport," Cole asked as Dominic entered the car. Dominic nodded. Mason joined them moments later, carrying the leather folder with the dinner arrangements. Traffic moved slowly through Brickell. Storm clouds darkened the city, though it was barely past 1. As they passed a small cafe near the Miami River, Dominic looked through the rain-streaked window. Claire had taken him there once after discovering he had not eaten since the previous morning. The place served burnt coffee and eggs on chipped plates. Dominic had disliked everything about it except the way Claire smiled when he complained. Mason noticed where he was looking. "You can still cancel the engagement." Dominic's gaze shifted to him. "Why would I?" "Because you have spent 8 months preparing for it and still look like a man being driven to his execution." Cole kept his eyes on the road. Dominic's voice remained flat. "Concern does not suit you, Mason. It is not concern. It is observation. Then observe quietly." The rest of the drive passed without conversation. At the airport, private security escorted Dominic through a restricted entrance. The private arrivals hall smelled of polished wood and jet fuel. Beyond the smoked glass, ground crews moved across the wet tarmac in reflective jackets. Evelyn's flight appeared on the monitor. 17 minutes to landing. A cross-family security coordinator approached Dominic and introduced himself. Dominic listened without interest as the man described the exit route, the press restrictions, and Victor's expectation that photographs be taken only after Evelyn reached the car. Mason checked his watch. "Everything is on schedule." Dominic looked through the glass partition separating the private terminal from the public concourse. Families waited beside luggage carts. A boy pressed both hands against the window to watch a plane taxi toward the runway. 2 elderly women embraced near the arrivals doors. Ordinary lives. Public affection. People who did not treat every attachment as a point of entry for an enemy. Then the crowd moved. Dominic saw the oversized coat first. A woman stood near the international departures line holding the strap of an old canvas bag. She moved slowly, protecting her right ankle. Her dark blonde hair was twisted into a loose knot. Her face had become thinner. One hand rested beneath the heavy curve of her stomach. Dominic's body went still. The woman turned slightly. Light touched the bruises around her throat. "Claire." His phone vibrated. The cross-jet had begun its final descent. Dominic stepped away from the glass. Mason moved with him. "Where are you going public departures?" "Evelyn lands in 12 minutes. Dominic did not slow. "I saw someone." Mason caught up near the connecting corridor. "Who?" Dominic pushed through the security door. "Claire Bennett." Mason's face changed only slightly, but Dominic saw it. "She is gone," Mason said. "You made certain of that." Dominic entered the public terminal. "She is pregnant." Mason stopped for half a step. The noise of the concourse closed around them. Dominic continued. "She has bruises around her throat. Send Grant." "No. Dominic Victor has people watching this building." Dominic turned. Mason lowered his voice. "This alliance controls the next 20 years of your organization. Whatever Claire needs can be handled by someone else." Dominic looked past him toward the departure line. Claire shifted her weight and winced. Her shoes were worn. The sole of the right one had begun separating from the leather. The bag at her shoulder was held shut with black electrical tape. These were not the belongings of a woman leaving after careful preparation. They were what remained when someone ran without knowing whether she would survive the night. Dominic looked back at Mason. "I don't send other men to collect what I failed to protect." He walked away. By the time he reached Claire, she was 11 people from the security checkpoint. She did not see him approach. "Claire." Her shoulders locked. She stared forward. "If you came to finish what you started," she whispered, "do it quickly." Dominic stepped closer. "What do you think I came here to do?" She turned. The coat opened. He saw the pregnancy clearly. Her eyes met his with exhausted certainty. "Kill me before I can tell anyone whose child this is." Dominic looked at the bruises around her throat. "Who did this to you?" Claire laughed once quietly. You're asking the wrong question. What is the right one? Ask what happened after you made sure no one in this city would hire me. The line moved forward. Claire took one step. Her ankle gave way. Dominic caught her arm before she struck the floor. She recoiled as if his hand had burned her. Across the concourse, a man in a tan jacket raised his phone and photographed them. Claire saw him. The anger vanished from her face. Fear took its place. She gripped Dominic's sleeve. "Do not look at him," she whispered. Dominic's eyes remained on hers. "Who is he?" Claire struggled to breathe. "That man works for Rafe Calder." Claire's fingers tightened around Dominic's sleeve. The man in the tan jacket lowered his phone and turned toward the nearest bank of elevators. He did not run. Running drew attention. He walked quickly, keeping his head down as he spoke into the phone near his mouth. Dominic watched him through the reflection in the glass wall. "How many people does Calder have inside the airport? I do not know. How many followed you here? I do not know." Claire's breath came faster. She looked toward the security checkpoint, then toward the elevators, calculating distances and exits even while one hand remained beneath her stomach. "I changed buses twice. I paid cash. I left my phone behind." Dominic kept his voice low. "Then how did he find you?" I said, "I do not know." Her answer was sharper than she intended. Pain crossed her face almost immediately. Followed by a quiet apology, she did not speak. Dominic released her arm. The place where his hand had touched her was covered by the sleeve of the oversized coat, but he could still feel how violently she had flinched. He looked toward the man in the tan jacket. "Stay here." Claire caught his wrist. "No." Dominic turned back to her. "He has seen us together. That is why we need to leave. I need his phone. You need to stop behaving like every problem can be solved by walking toward it with a gun." "I am not carrying a gun." Claire glanced at the two security officers near the entrance to the private corridor. "That has never meant you were unarmed." The man in the tan jacket reached the elevator. Dominic saw his thumb press the call button. Then Cole Hayes stepped into view. Cole had been standing near the restricted entrance waiting for instructions. He wore a black suit with no visible weapon. His face showed no urgency as he crossed the concourse, but Dominic recognized the change in his posture. Cole had seen the photograph. He adjusted his path. The elevator doors opened. The man in the tan jacket stepped inside. Cole entered with him. The doors closed. Claire stared at Dominic. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. He just followed that man into an elevator." Cole pays attention. That is not comforting. It was not meant to be. Claire tried to pull the coat closed over her stomach, but the zipper had broken. Her fingers trembled against the fabric. Dominic looked at the departure line. Passengers continued moving toward security, unaware that anything had changed. A woman argued with an airline employee about an oversized bag. A father knelt to tie his son's shoe. Somewhere above them, a recorded voice announced the final boarding call for a flight to Madrid. Claire's flight. She heard it too. Her eyes lifted toward the ceiling speakers. Dominic saw the decision forming in her face. "You are not getting on that plane. You do not decide where I go. You can barely stand. I have been standing alone for 8 months. The words struck with more force because she did not raise her voice. Dominic stepped closer, careful not to touch her. "Claire, the man who photographed us has already made a call. If Calder has people near the gates, they know which flight you booked. If you go through security, you trap yourself inside a controlled corridor with one exit. I know how airports work. Then you know I am right. I also know what happens when I get into a car with a man who believes he owns every decision in the room." Dominic held her gaze. The fluorescent lights made the bruising around her throat look darker. One mark curved beneath her jaw like the print of a thumb. Another disappeared below the collar of her sweater. He felt an impulse so violent that he had to force his hands to remain open. "I do not own you." Claire's expression did not change. "You told me I was an employee when it suited you. Now I am carrying your child so suddenly, I am something else." Before Dominic could answer, Mason arrived. He moved through the crowd with controlled speed irritation visible in the tight line of his mouth. Behind him came a member of the cross-security team, a broad man with a clear earpiece. "Evelyn is on the ground," Mason said. "Her plane has been parked for 12 minutes. Dominic did not look away from Claire. "Then she is safe. That is not the issue. It is the only issue that matters at an airport." Mason glanced at Claire. His gaze moved from her face to her stomach, then returned to Dominic. For a fraction of a second, something cold entered his expression. Claire saw it. Dominic felt her shift beside him. Mason lowered his voice. "Victor Cross has 3 representatives inside the private terminal. Every one of them has called Chicago. Let them call. You are humiliating his daughter. I am handling a security threat." Mason's eyes flicked toward the elevators. What threat? The man who photographed us. What man Dominic studied him? Mason had asked too quickly. Before he could respond, the elevator doors opened again. Cole emerged alone. His right cuff was torn. A thin red line crossed one knuckle. He approached Dominic and placed a black phone in his hand. He had company on the 2nd level, Cole said. 1 man, maybe 2. They used the parking stairwell. "Did they see you take this?" "Yes." "Where is he gone?" Mason looked at the phone. "Who was he?" Claire answered before Dominic could. "One of Rafe Calder's watchers." The cross-security officer went still. Mason's expression remained controlled. "That is not possible." Claire turned toward him. "Why Calder has no reason to monitor the airport?" Claire's eyes sharpened. "You seem very certain." Mason looked at her with the faint impatience one might show a frightened witness. "Calder operates through the northern corridor. He has no control inside this terminal. He has enough control to know I was here." Mason turned to Dominic. "Put her with Grant. We can move her to a safe location and question her there. You need to meet Evelyn." Claire's face lost what little color remained. Dominic noticed. Mason continued. "If Calder is involved, we should not create a scene in public. Grant can take her through the service exit. You and I return to the private terminal." Claire stepped backward. The movement placed Dominic between her and Mason. "No," she said. Mason's gaze moved to her. "No, I am not going anywhere with a man you choose. Claire, this is not the time for panic. I am not panicking." Her voice had become very quiet. "That is exactly what you told him to do before." Mason looked at Dominic. "She is confused." Dominic's attention sharpened. What did he tell me to do before Claire did not answer? Her eyes stayed on Mason. Mason gave a small shake of his head. "She has been through something. That is obvious. But this terminal is full of cameras, police, and civilians. We need to move carefully." Dominic handed Cole the phone. "Take her to the car." Claire looked at him. "I said I am not going with anyone you choose." Dominic met her eyes. "Then choose." She stared at him uncertain. "Cole Mason, the cross-security team, or me." The announcement for the Madrid flight repeated overhead. Claire looked toward the checkpoint. Then she looked at the bruised knuckles on Cole's hand, Mason's composed face, and Dominic standing close enough to shield her but not touching her. "You," she said. Mason exhaled through his nose. "Dominic." Dominic turned to Cole. "Bring the car to the short-term garage. Level 3. Mason stepped closer. "You are making this worse." Dominic's voice softened. "Move out of my way." Mason did not move. For 7 years, he had stood beside Dominic in rooms where men lied, begged, negotiated, and died. He knew exactly how dangerous that tone was. The cross-security officer watched both men carefully. Mason finally stepped aside. Dominic guided Claire toward the elevators without placing a hand on her back. Cole walked ahead of them. The crowd slowed their progress. Claire could not move quickly, and every few steps her injured ankle forced her to pause. Dominic matched her pace. He could feel Mason watching from behind. At the elevator, Claire whispered, "He knows." "Who, Mason?" "Knows what?" Her jaw tightened. "I do not know yet." The elevator arrived. They entered with Cole and a family carrying beach bags. A little girl stared at the bruises around Claire's throat. Her mother gently turned her toward the wall. Claire lowered her chin. Dominic saw shame cross her face. The emotion did not belong there. The elevator descended toward the garage. When the doors opened, heat rushed inside. The air smelled of concrete, gasoline, and rain. Cole walked several steps ahead. "Car is coming from the private side," he said. Dominic scanned the rows of parked vehicles. A white van idled near the far wall. 2 men stood beside a vending machine without buying anything. Claire saw them at the same moment. Her hand moved to her stomach. "That is one of them." "Which one?" "The man in the green shirt." The man looked up. His eyes met Dominic's. He reached inside his jacket. Dominic pushed Claire behind a concrete column. The first shot cracked across the garage. Glass shattered behind them. People screamed. The family from the elevator dropped beside a parked car. The little girl began crying. Cole drew his weapon and fired once. The man in the green shirt fell behind the vending machine. The second man ran toward the white van. Dominic kept Claire pressed behind the column with his body between her and the open garage. She gripped his jacket. "Do not leave me." It was not a plea she seemed willing to make. The words escaped anyway. Dominic looked down at her. "I am not leaving." The white van accelerated toward the exit. Cole fired at the rear tire. The shot missed. A black armored sedan rounded the corner and blocked half the lane. The van swerved, struck a parked car, then forced its way past the sedan with metal screaming against metal. Grant Mercer stepped out from behind the wheel of the armored car, weapon raised. The van disappeared down the ramp. Grant looked toward Dominic. "Move." Cole opened the rear door. Dominic helped Claire across the lane. Her ankle buckled again, and this time she did not protest when he placed one arm around her waist. She weighed almost nothing. The realization filled him with a colder anger than the gunfire had. He eased her into the back seat. Claire moved as far from him as the interior allowed. Grant took the front passenger seat. Cole drove. The sedan left the garage through a secured exit and entered airport traffic. For several minutes, no one spoke. Rain began striking the windows in heavy drops. Aircraft lights moved through the gray afternoon beyond the perimeter fence. Grant examined the phone Cole had taken. "It is locked." "Break it," Dominic said. "I need time. You have until we reach the highway." Claire leaned her head against the glass. Her eyes closed. Dominic watched the movement of her throat when she swallowed. "Where did you plan to go?" She did not open her eyes. "Lisbon." "Why Lisbon?" "It was the cheapest flight leaving the country." "Do you know anyone there?" "No." "Did you have a hotel?" "No." "How much money do you have?" Claire opened her eyes. "Enough to buy the ticket. And after that I would have figured it out." Dominic looked at the canvas bag on the floor by her feet. The zipper was held together with electrical tape. One handle had been repaired with a strip of cloth. The coat she wore was too large for her shoulders and smelled faintly of smoke. "You were going to land in another country with no money, no place to stay, and a child due in 2 months. I was going to land somewhere Rafe did not control." Her voice remained steady, but one hand tightened against her stomach. Dominic looked at her ankle. The bandage was gray with dirt. When was that wrapped yesterday? Who wrapped it? I did. What happened? I fell near the bus station. Were you running? I had been running for 2 days. The car entered the expressway. Miami rose around them in wet towers and blurred lights. Palm trees bent in the wind. Water collected along the concrete barriers. Dominic waited. Claire stared out the window. Finally, he said, "Tell me everything." She laughed softly. There was no humor in it. "You have not changed. I did not say I had. You still give orders as if the world is waiting for you to arrange it. I am trying to understand what happened." "No. You are trying to find the person responsible so you can kill him." Dominic did not deny it. Claire turned toward him. "What happens after that?" The question entered the space between them. Dominic had no answer that would not sound like another order. Claire looked away again. "When you fired me, I thought I could find work outside the port." Her voice had changed. It became flatter, almost professional. The voice she used when presenting facts too dangerous to feel. "I applied to accounting firms, shipping companies, insurance offices. I used contacts I had known for years." "What happened?" "They stopped returning calls." "Why?" "You know why." Dominic remained silent. Claire continued. "People believed I had stolen from you. Some thought I had given information to one of your rivals. No one believed a man like Dominic Vale dismissed his best accountant without a reason. I transferred enough money for you to leave. The account was frozen 3 days later." Dominic turned sharply. "By whom I never found out. Why did you not contact Mason?" "I did." The front seat became very still. Grant looked back. Cole kept his eyes on the road. Dominic's voice lowered. "When?" 2 days after the account was frozen." "What did he say?" "He said the payment had been flagged because you suspected I had copied company records. He told me not to contact anyone in the organization again." Dominic felt something shift inside him. "I never ordered the account frozen." Claire looked at him. "I did not know that. What number did you call the office line? Who answered Mason?" Grant turned fully now. Dominic's expression did not change, but the temperature inside the car seemed to fall. Claire looked toward the windshield. "After that, I sold my apartment furniture. I moved into a motel near Little Havana. I kept applying for jobs until I could no longer afford the room." "When did you learn you were pregnant?" 3 weeks after you fired me." Dominic looked at her stomach. "Why did you not tell me?" Claire's eyes flashed. "I tried." His breathing stopped for a moment. "How I wrote to you. I received nothing. I sent a letter to your office. Then I sent an email to the private address you used for financial documents. That address was monitored by Mason. I know that now." Dominic looked toward the back of Grant's seat. "Did anyone answer?" "Mason called me." The rain beat harder against the roof. Claire's fingers curled over the edge of the coat. "He said you had read the letter. He said you did not believe the baby was yours. He said if I made the pregnancy public, you would treat it as an attempt at extortion." Dominic's voice was almost inaudible. "He said that in my name—" "Yes. What else?" Claire stared at him. "He said you had already done me a kindness by letting me leave alive." No one in the car moved. Dominic's hand closed slowly against his knee. For years, men had described him as cold, but cold was not what filled him now. Cold was controlled. This was something deeper, something without shape. "I did not know," he said. Claire looked back toward the window. "That does not change what happened." "No." He forced the word through a throat that felt too tight. "It does not." Grant lowered his eyes to the phone in his hand and began working again. Claire continued. "Rafe Calder contacted me after I left the motel. He said he needed an accountant for an agricultural export company near Homestead. You knew who he was. I knew the name. I did not know the company belonged to him. You should have checked. Claire turned on him. With what? Dominic, my frozen account, my disconnected phone, the professional network your reputation had already closed to me. He absorbed the anger without looking away. She pressed a hand against her lower back. When I arrived, the office looked legitimate. There were freight ledgers, tax records, payroll files. Rafe stayed away for the first month. And then, he came in one afternoon while I was reviewing invoices. Claire's gaze drifted beyond Dominic toward something only she could see. He asked whether I had worked for you. I said yes. He asked why I left. I said the position was eliminated. Her mouth tightened. He laughed. Dominic said nothing. He told me men like you did not eliminate positions. You eliminated risks. The sedan passed beneath an overpass. For a second, the interior went dark. Claire's reflection appeared in the window. I should have left that day. I did not have enough money for another motel. I had started feeling the baby move. I told myself I could work for 2 more weeks. When did he find out I became dizzy at the office? One of his men called a doctor. Rafe demanded my medical file. Dominic's jaw hardened. He saw the dates. Yes, he knew. He counted backward. Claire rubbed her thumb across the fabric covering her stomach. At first he acted amused. He asked whether you knew. I told him no. Why did you tell him the truth? He already had the dates. Lying would have made him curious. He was already curious. I did not understand how curious. Rafe began asking questions about Dominic's accounts. Claire refused to answer. Then her car disappeared from the parking lot. Her motel room was emptied. Her identification was taken. Rafe moved her into a guest house on his property. The doors locked from the outside. He called it protection. Did he touch you then? Dominic asked. Claire's eyes returned to him. The question sounded too gentle for the man asking it. Not at first. She looked down at her hands. He wanted information. He believed fear worked better when it was introduced slowly. Dominic watched the bruises around her throat. Claire continued in the same flat tone. He gave me account records to organize. After 3 weeks, I realized the companies were yours. The names were different, but the routing patterns were the same. Payments moved through the same offshore banks. Cargo numbers matched your shipment schedules. Mirror ledgers. Yes. Who gave them to him I did not know then. And when you refused, he took my phone. He moved me into the main house. He placed guards outside the room. Her fingers rose toward her neck, then stopped. The first time he put his hands on me, he asked for the access code to one of your reserve accounts. Dominic's voice became harder. Did you give it to him? I never knew it. Did he believe you? No. The word was quiet. The car continued south through the rain. He squeezed until I could not breathe, Claire said. Then he let go and asked again. When I gave him the same answer, he smiled and told me we had made progress. Dominic stared at the layered bruising. How often Claire looked away. How often Claire enough. That is not an answer. Her face turned toward him with sudden fury. You do not get to demand details because your guilt is hungry. The word stopped him. Claire's chest rose and fell. Then she closed her eyes. I am sorry. Do not apologize. I am tired. I know. No, you do not. She opened her eyes again. You have never been tired like this. Dominic had no response. Claire described the months inside Rafe's compound. She was permitted to work under supervision. She reviewed shipment accounts, payroll records, and lists of law enforcement officers on Rafe's payroll. She ate when food was brought. She slept when fear allowed it. Rafe visited at night. Sometimes he asked questions. Sometimes he placed a hand around her throat simply to remind her that he could. He called it calibration, Claire said. He said fear had to be maintained like pressure inside an engine. Dominic's face remained still. Only the tendons in his neck revealed what he was holding back. Did he hurt the baby? He kicked me once. Dominic moved before he could stop himself. Claire recoiled against the door. He froze. Where? The ribs? Which side? The left. Was there bleeding? No. Did a doctor examine you? Rafe brought one the next morning. Why? Because the baby mattered to him. Dominic looked down. Claire's voice lowered. He said she was an asset. She. Claire did not answer immediately. Then she placed both hands over her stomach. It is a girl. The air left Dominic's lungs. A daughter. The word existed in his mind without fitting anywhere inside it. Claire watched his face. You did not know? No. I was not sure I wanted you to. Why? Because knowing gives men like you a reason to claim things. Dominic met her eyes. I am not claiming her. Not yet. The phone in Grant's hand unlocked with a soft sound. He looked at the call history. Dominic. The tone in his voice changed everything. What? The last call made from this phone went to a prepaid number. Whose I do not know yet, but the same number appears 19 times over the past month. Grant turned the screen around. There is another contact saved without a name. Dominic looked at the number. He knew it. Mason's private line. Claire saw recognition in his face. That is him. Dominic's gaze lifted. How do you know Rafe kept payment records? Mason received $60,000 every month through a freight company in Tampa. The same company Claire had flagged in the folder 8 months earlier. Dominic remembered the papers on his desk. He remembered Mason explaining the transfers as emergency storage fees. He remembered accepting the answer because Claire was gone and the merger required his attention. How long, Dominic asked. 7 months. Grant looked toward the windshield. Cole's grip tightened on the steering wheel. Claire continued. Mason gave Rafe your shell company's port schedules, security rotations, and account structures. He also gave him the cross documents. Which documents? The draft merger terms. Dominic's expression sharpened. Those never left my office. Mason photographed them. How do you know I saw the images? Victor Cross's handwritten notes were visible in the margins. Grant swore quietly. Dominic looked at the rain sliding across the window. Mason had stood beside him less than an hour earlier. Mason had told him to send Claire away with another man. Mason had insisted he return to Evelyn. Dominic took out his phone. Claire caught his arm. Do not tell him everything you know. Dominic looked at her hand. She released him immediately. What do you suggest? Give him one detail. Something only a guilty man would recognize. Dominic dialed Mason. He answered on the second ring. Where are you? Mason sounded controlled, but Dominic could hear movement behind him. Driving. You need to return. Victor called me directly. Evelyn has left the airport and the cross team is treating this as a deliberate insult. Dominic watched Claire. She watched him back. How is the lighting on the 3rd level of the Harbor Point garage? Silence. Only a fraction. Then Mason said, What? The 3rd level. The west corner. Is the broken light still there? I have no idea what you are talking about. Dominic heard the change in his breathing. Claire saw the confirmation in Dominic's face. Mason continued. Who is in the car with you? Dominic ended the call. For several seconds, the only sound was the rain and the tires crossing wet pavement. Claire leaned back against the seat. He knows I told you. Yes. He will go to Rafe. Yes. He will warn him. Dominic looked at Grant. Track Mason's vehicle. Grant began typing. Claire stared at Dominic. There is more. Dominic turned toward her. The fatigue in her face deepened. She pressed one hand against her stomach and waited for a tightness to pass. Rafe was not planning to use the baby to negotiate. What was he planning? He told me that to keep me cooperative. Claire swallowed. The real plan is the engagement dinner. Dominic said nothing. Mason gave him the seating chart and the location of every member of your security team. One of Rafe's men is inside the catering staff. Grant looked up. Claire continued. They intend to kill you during dinner. Mason takes control of your organization. Rafe takes the port routes. They already divided the territory. Dominic's voice dropped, and my daughter Claire's eyes filled with something darker than fear. Rafe said he would raise her. The words hung inside the car. He said she would grow up calling him her father. He wanted you to die knowing he had taken something from you that had not even been born. Dominic looked down at his hands. They were steady. That frightened Claire more than anger would have. His phone rang. The Cross security coordinator. Dominic answered. Mr. Vale, Miss Cross has left the airport. Victor Cross expects an explanation before the dinner proceeds. The dinner is canceled. The man fell silent. Sir, cancel the room. Release the staff. No one enters the Fontaine Royale under my name. Mr. Cross will consider that a termination of the agreement. He can consider it after he sees the documents his future son-in-law sold to a narcotics trafficker. Dominic ended the call. Claire watched him. You just abandoned 8 months of negotiations. No. What do you call it? Removing a compromised location. That marriage was part of your empire. It was a contract. And Evelyn, she knew what it was. Claire looked back out the window. For the first time since the airport, something in her shoulders loosened. Not trust, only the smallest release of tension. Cole changed lanes. A black sport utility vehicle moved with them. Claire noticed it in the reflection of the side mirror. Her body stiffened. Cole. He glanced at the mirror. I see it. The vehicle had been behind them for 4 blocks. Its windows were dark. When Cole accelerated, it accelerated. When he moved toward the exit lane, it followed. Grant reached beneath his jacket. Dominic looked at Claire. She had one hand on the door and the other over her daughter. The black vehicle drew closer. Claire's voice became a whisper. They found us. Claire's voice barely carried over the rain. The black sport utility vehicle moved closer, its headlights bright in the rear window. Water sprayed from its tires as it cut across 2 lanes and settled directly behind them. Cole looked into the mirror. 2 men in front, maybe one in back. Grant checked the weapon beneath his jacket. The windows are too dark. Dominic kept his eyes on Claire. She had gone rigid against the door. Her breathing shortened. One hand covered her stomach while the other pressed flat against the glass as if she could hold the pursuing vehicle outside by force. Look at me, Dominic said. Her eyes remained fixed on the headlights. Claire. She turned toward him. You are not in that house. Her lips parted, but no sound came. You are in my car, Dominic continued. Cole is driving. Grant is armed. I am beside you. That did not protect us in the garage. No. Dominic did not soften the truth. But they are behind us now. The sport utility vehicle accelerated. Its front bumper came within several feet of the sedan. Claire flinched as the driver struck them. Metal shuddered beneath the impact. Cole tightened both hands on the wheel. They are trying to force us toward the barrier. The expressway curved above a row of warehouses. On the right, concrete divided them from a steep drop into a flooded service road. On the left, traffic moved through sheets of rain. Grant turned in his seat. "Dominic, I need permission, not in traffic. They will hit us again. Then make them miss." Cole moved suddenly into the left lane. The vehicle followed. A delivery truck sounded its horn as Cole cut in front of it. The black vehicle tried to follow, but the truck blocked its path. For several seconds, the pursuing headlights disappeared. Claire released a breath. Then the black vehicle emerged on the shoulder. It passed the truck, struck a row of plastic barriers, and came level with the sedan. The rear window lowered. Grant saw the gun first. "Down." Dominic pulled Claire across the seat. The shot shattered the rear window. Glass burst through the car. Claire cried out as Dominic covered her with his body. Cold rain entered through the broken window. Another shot struck the metal frame near Grant's head. Cole forced the sedan against the black vehicle. The two cars collided. The gunman's arm disappeared from view. Grant lowered his window and fired twice into the front tire. The tire burst. The sport utility vehicle swerved hard, struck the center barrier, and spun across the wet roadway. A second car crashed into its rear quarter. Horns and brakes screamed through the rain. Cole did not slow. Dominic lifted himself from Claire. "Are you hurt?" She did not answer. Her eyes were closed. Her breathing came in quick, painful pulls. Dominic looked for blood. A shallow cut crossed her cheek where a piece of glass had touched the skin. Another fragment glittered in her hair. Claire. She opened her eyes. The baby. Her hands moved over her stomach. "What about her?" "She is not moving." The words emptied the car of everything else. Dominic placed his palm against the seat beside her, but did not touch her. "How long, I do not know. Was she moving before the airport?" "Yes." "When?" "This morning. On the bus." Claire pressed both hands more firmly against her stomach. "Move," she whispered. "Please, move." Dominic looked toward Grant. "Call the doctor." Grant already had his phone out. Cole took the next exit. He drove beneath the expressway and into an industrial district where traffic thinned. The broken rear window filled the car with rain and the smell of wet asphalt. Grant spoke quickly into the phone. 7 months pregnant, recent physical abuse, dehydration, gunfire, and collision. No visible bleeding. Claire turned her face toward the window. Dominic saw panic closing around her. He had seen men panic before. It made them loud. It made them careless. Claire's panic was silent. Her eyes became distant. Her shoulders curled inward. She seemed to be disappearing inside herself one breath at a time. Dominic leaned closer. "Tell me what you feel." "Nothing. Pain my back. Wear low. Sharp or constant, I do not know. Claire, stay with me." She looked at him with sudden anger. "Do not tell me to stay with you like you did not leave first." The words struck cleanly. Dominic accepted them. "Then stay with her." Claire lowered her eyes to her stomach. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then her body softened. A small movement passed beneath the fabric of her sweater. Claire gasped. Her hand moved to the left side of her belly. She kicked. Dominic did not realize he had stopped breathing until the air left him. Again, Claire waited. Another movement. Her eyes closed. Yes. The relief on her face was so raw that Dominic had to look away. Grant ended the call. "The doctor is meeting us at the estate. She says Claire needs to lie down, drink water, and be monitored for contractions. How long?" "She is already on her way." Cole turned into a private warehouse complex owned by one of Dominic's shipping companies. Steel gates opened before them. A second armored car waited inside. Grant looked through the broken rear window. "We change vehicles here." Cole drove beneath a covered loading dock. Men in dark clothing emerged from the warehouse. They surrounded the sedan before the engine stopped. Dominic opened the rear door. Claire tried to step out on her own. Her injured ankle touched the concrete and folded beneath her. Dominic caught her. This time she did not pull away. "I can walk," she said. "You can barely stand. I am not being carried." "Then use me." He placed one arm around her waist and let her choose how much weight to give him. They crossed the loading dock slowly. The storm had darkened the afternoon until the warehouse lights looked like evening. Rain hammered the metal roof. Forklifts stood abandoned between stacks of sealed cargo. Claire glanced around. "How many places like this do you own enough?" "That is not an answer. It is the only one that matters right now." She gave him a tired look. "You really have not changed." Dominic helped her into the second car. "No," he said. "Not yet." Cole took the wheel again. Grant joined a third vehicle with the security team. The convoy left through a rear gate and entered a tunnel beneath the warehouse. Claire looked through the window. "Where does this go?" "To an old rail depot near the river. You built an escape route under a warehouse. It was here before I bought the property. And you kept it. I keep useful things." Claire looked at him. The sentence carried too much history. Dominic knew it the moment he said it. Her face closed. He turned toward the dark tunnel beyond the windshield. "I should not have said that. No, I did not mean you. You did 8 months ago." The car emerged from the tunnel into a secured yard behind the rail depot. From there, Cole drove toward Biscayne Bay using narrow service roads and private entrances. No vehicle followed. By the time they reached Dominic's estate, the rain had softened. The house stood behind a high stone wall near the water, hidden by palms and old sea grape trees. Cameras turned toward the approaching car. Steel gates opened without sound. Claire stared through the window. "You moved 6 months ago. Why, the penthouse was compromised." She looked at him, by whom Dominic did not answer. The real reason had never sounded rational, even inside his own mind. The penthouse still held her absence too clearly. The kitchen island where she had sat. The hall where she left her shoes. The window where she stood during storms, pretending not to be afraid. He had remained there for 2 months after dismissing her. Every room had reminded him of the decision he refused to regret. Then one morning he found the white mug in the cabinet. He left that afternoon. The car stopped beneath the covered entrance. Dominic stepped out and opened Claire's door. She looked at the house, then at the armed men positioned beneath the balconies. "This is a fortress. It is a home. No, it is a place designed to survive an attack. In my life, those definitions overlap." Claire placed one hand on the door frame and tried to stand. Dominic offered his hand. She studied it. Rainwater moved from the roof in silver lines behind him. His shirt was damp from the broken car window. A small piece of glass remained caught near his collar. Claire finally put her hand in his. Her fingers were cold. Dominic helped her from the car. They crossed the stone entrance hall at her pace. The house smelled of cedar rain and the faint smoke of a fire burning somewhere deeper inside. Claire's wet shoes left marks across the slate floor. She noticed them. "I am ruining your floor. It has survived worse. You always hated disorder. I hated surprises." The corner of her mouth moved, but the expression never became a smile. "So did I." Dominic led her to a sitting room facing the bay. Tall windows showed the storm moving across the water. White curtains shifted in the air from the cooling system. A stone fireplace burned at the far wall. Claire stopped at the threshold. "Who else is here, house staff?" "Security." "Cole. Grant will return after the convoy is checked." "Any of Mason's people?" "No." "How can you be sure I cannot?" Claire looked back toward the hall. "That is the first honest answer you have given me today." Dominic closed the door. There is a lock on the inside. She tested it immediately. The bolt slid into place. Dominic watched her hand remain on it for several seconds. He understood then that safety would not be a room, a wall, or armed men outside a door. Safety would be the ability to decide who entered. Claire crossed to the chair nearest the fire and lowered herself carefully. Pain tightened her face as she shifted her weight away from her ankle. Dominic knelt several feet in front of her. "May I look at your foot?" "No. The doctor will need to. The doctor is not you." Dominic stood. "Fair." Claire seemed surprised by the answer. He removed his wet jacket and placed it over the back of another chair. "When did you last eat?" She looked toward the fire. "Yesterday." "What? I do not remember." "Breakfast. Maybe." Dominic walked to the door. Claire's body tightened. He stopped. "I am getting food." She relaxed only slightly. "Leave the door open." Dominic did. He returned several minutes later carrying a tray. There was broth bread, fruit cheese, and water. He placed it on the table beside her. Claire stared at the food. "Who prepared this?" "I did." She looked at him. "You made soup. I poured it into a bowl." "That sounds more believable." Dominic sat in the chair opposite her. "Eat." Her eyes hardened. "I am not one of your men." He held her gaze. "Please eat." The silence changed. Claire reached for the bread. At first she took small bites. Then hunger overcame caution. She ate without looking at Dominic. He turned toward the windows and gave her privacy. Outside, lightning moved across the water. Claire flinched. The movement was small, but he noticed. "You still hate storms," he said. "I have learned to hate quieter things." Dominic did not reply. When the bowl was empty, Claire drank half the water. Her hands stopped trembling. A soft knock sounded at the open door. A woman in Navy medical clothing entered with a leather bag. She was in her late 40s, with silver threaded through her dark hair and a calm expression. Claire Bennett. Claire nodded. "I am Dr. Marissa Shaw. I work in maternal medicine at Jackson Memorial. Mr. Vale gave me only the information necessary to reach you." Claire looked at Dominic. "Did you tell her who you are?" "No." Dr. Shaw glanced between them. "I do not need that information to examine you." Claire hesitated. "Will anything I say leave this room?" "Not without your consent, unless I believe you or the baby is in immediate danger." Claire's eyes moved toward Dominic again. He understood. "I will wait outside." He left before she had to ask. The door closed behind him. Dominic stood alone in the corridor. Cole approached from the entrance hall. The black vehicle was recovered. One man dead inside. 2 escaped before the highway patrol arrived. Any identification? Nothing useful, and the phone Grant is copying it now. Where is Mason? His car left the airport 20 minutes after ours. Direction southwest, toward the Everglades. Dominic looked at the closed sitting room door. "Keep tracking him." Cole nodded. Evelyn Cross called again. Dominic held out his hand. Cole gave him the phone. There were 9 missed calls, 4 from Mason, 3 from the Cross security coordinator, 2 from Evelyn. Dominic selected Evelyn's name. She answered immediately. "You left me on an airport runway." Her voice was calm. That made it more dangerous. "I know. My father's people watched you walk out of a secured terminal without explanation." "I saw Claire Bennett." A pause followed. "The accountant." "Yes. The woman your people told us had no continuing connection to you. She is 7 months pregnant." Evelyn did not respond for several seconds. When she did, her voice remained measured. "Is the child yours?" "Yes." You sound certain. I am. Were you aware before today? No. Then why did you leave me? Dominic looked toward the rain beyond the entrance hall. She was injured. Calder's men were watching her. The name changed Evelyn's tone. Rafe Calder. Yes. What does he have to do with your former accountant? He held her for 4 months. Silence. Dominic continued. Mason gave him our financial records. Our records. The cross-merger documents. Draft terms. Security notes. Your father's handwritten comments. Evelyn's breath changed. Do you have proof Claire does? I want to see it. When she gives permission. This concerns my family. It is still her evidence. Another pause. You sound different, Evelyn said. I am not. You just asked a woman's permission before sharing something useful. Dominic looked at the closed door again. I am learning. That must be uncomfortable. It is. Evelyn exhaled. I will tell my father there was a security breach. I will not tell him about the child yet. Thank you. Do not thank me. Send the proof. The line ended. Dominic remained in the corridor until the sitting room door opened. Dr. Shaw stepped out. She is dehydrated and undernourished. Her ankle is badly sprained, but I do not believe it is broken. The bruising on her throat is more concerning. Dominic's face hardened. How severe? There is swelling and tenderness around the soft tissue. She needs imaging, but moving her to a hospital creates questions she does not appear ready to answer. And the baby's strong heartbeat. Normal movement, no signs of immediate labor. Dominic felt the muscles in his shoulders release. Dr. Shaw continued. She needs rest, real rest. No interrogation, no stress. That may be difficult. Then make it less difficult. Dominic looked at her. Dr. Shaw did not step back. I do not care who you are, Mr. Vale. Her body has been surviving under constant threat. Removing the threat does not remove the damage. I understand. No, you understand the words. She closed her bag. She also has bruising along her ribs. One appears older, one is more recent. She told me she was kicked. Dominic's expression did not change. Dr. Shaw watched him carefully. Whatever you are thinking, do it away from her. She left with instructions for medication fluids and observation. Dominic entered the sitting room. Claire sat beneath a wool blanket. A clean bandage wrapped her ankle. The cut on her cheek had been treated. She looked smaller without the oversized coat. The canvas bag remained beside her chair. Dr. Shaw says the baby is safe, Dominic said. I heard her. He sat across from her. Claire looked at the fire. You called Evelyn. Yes. What did you tell her that Mason sold the merger documents to Rafe? And me that Rafe held you. And the baby I told her the child is mine. Claire's eyes turned toward him. You did not ask me. No. Dominic did not defend himself. I should have. Claire studied him. Evelyn deserved the truth. That does not mean I had the right to give her yours. The answer seemed to unsettle Claire more than an argument would have. She looked down at the canvas bag. Bring it to me. Dominic lifted it carefully and placed it on her lap. Claire ran her fingers along the torn seam beneath the zipper. This bag belonged to one of the groundskeepers at Rafe's property. He gave it to me after my purse disappeared. Why? He had a daughter my age. Where is he now? Rafe found out he helped me. Dominic waited. Claire did not continue. She tore open the bottom lining. A sealed plastic envelope slid into her hand. Inside were 2 small flash drives and several folded sheets of paper covered in tiny handwriting. Dominic stared at them. You kept these inside the bag. I stitched them beneath the lining. When? At night. How did you get a needle? I removed one from the hem of a curtain. Dominic took one of the drives. What is on this 7 months of transactions between Mason and Rafe? Account numbers, dates, payments, copies of your security rotations, the cross documents, names of port officers on Rafe's payroll, and the paper. Claire unfolded the first sheet. It was a map. Rafe's property appeared in careful lines. The main house, the outer wall, guard posts, service roads, a boathouse near the water, a drainage channel beneath the eastern side of the property. I counted steps every time they moved me between rooms, Claire said. The windows in the east wing face the marsh. The study is on the ground floor. Rafe sleeps upstairs when he is there. Dominic looked at the map. You memorized the security rotation. I had time. You did all of this while he was watching you. He was not watching me. He was watching for obedience. Claire removed the second sheet. Mason met Rafe's lieutenant every Tuesday night at the Harbor Point garage. Third level, west corner. Dominic remembered the silence on the phone. Claire pointed to a series of numbers. The payments went through a freight company in Tampa. The same one I flagged before you fired me. I saw the report and believed Mason. Yes. The admission sat heavily between them. Claire folded the paper again. You chose the answer that kept your plans clean. Dominic held the flash drive in his palm. I chose the man I had known for 7 years over the woman I refused to admit I loved. Claire became completely still. The fire cracked behind her. Do not say that now. It is true. It was not true when I needed it. It was true then. I was too much of a coward to live with it. Claire's eyes glistened, but no tears fell. You were never a coward. I stood with my back to you because I knew I could not say those words while looking at your face. That was not fear. It was. Dominic leaned forward. I knew if I looked at you, the merger would end. I knew I would ask you to stay. I chose the deal because numbers were easier than needing someone. Claire's jaw tightened. And I paid for your discipline. Yes. I slept behind a locked door while Rafe's men stood outside. I know. No, you know facts. Her voice rose for the first time. You do not know what it felt like to hear his footsteps stop outside my room. You do not know what it felt like to hold my breath and wonder whether he wanted information or simply wanted to remind me that I could not leave. Dominic did not move. Claire's hand closed over the blanket. You do not know what it was like to feel your daughter kick while a man explained how he would raise her after he killed you. Every word reached him. He accepted all of them. You are right. Claire looked away. An apology is not redemption. I know. Killing Rafe will not undo this. I know. Giving me a room in this house will not make me trust you. I know. She looked back at him. What are you going to do with the records? First I am going to copy them. Then send proof to Evelyn. Only the cross documents. Dominic nodded. The rest stays under your control. Claire stared at him for a long moment. Under mine. They are your records. They concern your organization. You built them. The distinction mattered. Claire placed the drives in his hand. You may copy them. You do not keep the originals. Agreed. Dominic stood. Claire watched him cross toward the door. Dominic. He stopped. If you go after Rafe tonight, do not pretend you are doing it for me. He turned. Why? Because revenge is the language you already speak. I need to know whether you can learn anything else. Dominic looked at the flash drives. What do you want me to learn? That protecting someone is not the same as possessing them. Silence followed. Then Dominic nodded. I will remember. He left the room and found Grant waiting in the hall with a laptop. Mason's car is moving west, Grant said. He left the main highway 15 minutes ago, toward Rafe's property. Yes. Grant opened the laptop. The phone from the airport has messages discussing a change in guard rotations. They know Claire escaped with records. Dominic handed him one of the flash drives. Copy this. Do not open anything beyond the cross files until Claire authorizes it. Grant glanced at him. Claire authorizes it? Yes. Grant accepted the drive without comment. Cole approached from the entrance hall. Victor Cross is demanding a call. Evelyn first. Dominic returned to the sitting room. Claire had locked the door. He knocked. A pause followed. The lock opened. Claire stood behind the door with one hand against the frame. Dominic remained outside. Evelyn wants proof. Claire considered him. Come in. She returned to the chair and selected one file from the copied drive. It contained photographs of the merger papers with Victor's handwritten notes visible in the margins. Send only this page. Dominic did. Evelyn called less than a minute later. Dominic put the phone on speaker. Claire listened from the chair. Evelyn's voice was colder than before. That handwriting belongs to my father. Yes, Dominic said. Who had access? Dominic Mason and me, Claire answered. Evelyn paused. Claire Bennett. Yes. I was told you had left the organization. I was removed. I see. There was no pity in Evelyn's voice. Claire seemed to respect that. Evelyn continued. My father will want the full file. He cannot have it, Claire said. Dominic watched her. Evelyn replied, Those documents concern my family. The file also contains evidence of crimes committed against me and information that could put other people in danger. You may have the pages related to cross operations. Another silence. Then Evelyn said, That is reasonable. Dominic looked at the phone. Few people said those words to Evelyn Cross. Fewer heard them from her. The engagement is suspended, Evelyn continued. I will explain the security breach to my father. He will still be furious about the airport. He should be, Dominic said. He will demand compensation. He can ask. Claire spoke. If he is as practical as you say, he will care more about who leaked his documents than who missed a photograph. Evelyn gave a quiet sound that might have been approval. You understand my father. I understand men who believe information belongs to them. Evelyn ended the call with a promise to contact Dominic at 8 in the morning. The room became quiet again. Dominic placed the phone away. You handled that well. Claire pulled the blanket tighter. I spent 4 months speaking carefully to violent men. Dominic looked at her. That is not a skill you should have needed. No. He crossed to the writing desk at the far wall and opened the top drawer. He removed a revolver and placed it on the desk. Claire watched him. It is loaded, he said. The safety is here. I know how a gun works. Have you used one? Yes. When Rafe made me clean his. Dominic's mouth tightened. The East Wing has 3 bedrooms, a private bathroom, and a separate entrance to the garden. It is yours. For how long? As long as you choose. And if I leave, I will not stop you. If I take the evidence, it is yours. If I refuse to let you see the baby. The question hurt more than he expected. Dominic answered anyway. I will ask what I can do to change your decision. Claire searched his face. And if nothing changes it, I will live with that. She looked down. For the first time, Dominic saw something in her expression that was not anger, fear, or exhaustion. It was uncertainty. He turned toward the door. I need to prepare. You are going tonight. Yes. Claire looked toward the flash drive in his hand. Rafe may have changed the property since I escaped. Grant will verify the routes. Mason knows how you operate. I know. He will expect the front gate, the shoreline, and the service road. Dominic paused. Claire unfolded the map again. There is a drainage channel beneath the eastern wall. It floods during heavy rain, but the tide begins falling after midnight. Dominic crossed back to her. She pointed to a narrow line near the marsh. The opening is hidden behind an old pump station. Rafe thinks it is collapsed. Is it no? How do you know the groundskeeper used it to bring food to me after Rafe reduced my meals? The memory darkened her face. Dominic studied the map. You should rest. I will rest when I know the evidence is safe. It will be. Claire looked at him. You said that about me once. Dominic folded the map carefully. No, I never did. The truth of it made them both silent. Grant appeared in the doorway. His expression had changed. "We intercepted a call from Mason." Dominic turned. "Where is he?" "At Rafe's compound." "Who was he speaking to?" "Rafe's lieutenant." Grant looked at the map in Dominic's hand. "They know about the eastern drainage channel." Claire's face tightened. Grant continued. "They have placed explosives beneath the pump station and along the outer wall." Dominic looked toward the dark windows. Rain moved across Biscayne Bay in long silver lines. Claire rose slowly from the chair. Her hand closed around his wrist. "Then do not enter where they expect you to die." Claire's hand remained around Dominic's wrist. The rain moved across the windows behind her, turning Biscayne Bay into a field of black water and broken light. Grant stood in the doorway with the intercepted call still open on his phone. No one spoke for several seconds. Dominic looked down at the map. The eastern drainage channel had been the quietest route into Rafe Calder's property. It was also the route Mason would have expected him to choose once he learned the front gate had been reinforced. Mason knew how Dominic thought. He knew Dominic preferred controlled entry, limited exposure, and silence before violence. 7 years beside him had taught Mason where he would place his men, which risks he would accept, and which route he would consider too obvious. Dominic folded the map. "We are not using the channel." Grant stepped farther into the room. "The shoreline is exposed. The western road is narrow enough to trap the vehicles." "What about the North Marsh?" Claire released Dominic's wrist and leaned over the map. "There is no road." "I did not ask about a road." She studied him. "The ground is soft. Rafe lost a truck there last summer. How deep? Waist high near the tree line, deeper closer to the water." Grant moved beside them. "There is an old maintenance path here." Claire shook her head. "It ends at a locked cattle gate. Can it be cut?" "Yes, but the sound will carry." Dominic pointed toward a cluster of buildings north of the main house. "What is this? A storage barn? Diesel tools, fertilizer, 2 utility vehicles. Guarded. Usually 1 man at night." Grant understood first. "We approach through the marsh, enter near the barn, and use their own vehicles to cross the property." Claire looked from Grant to Dominic. "The barn is less than 200 feet from the north wall, which means the men watching the gate will be facing the wrong direction," Dominic said. "Mason knows you avoid unnecessary exposure. Then, tonight, I disappoint him." Claire straightened slowly. Pain crossed her face as she shifted weight from her injured ankle. "You are still assuming the guard positions have not changed." "They have changed," Dominic said. "That is why we will not depend on them." He turned to Grant. 6 men. No more." Grant frowned. "Rafe may have 20 inside. A large team is easier to hear." "And harder to kill," Claire said. Dominic looked at her. She held his gaze without apology. "You are walking into a fortified property controlled by a man who has already tried to kill us twice today. Do not confuse confidence with preparation." "I do not." "You used to." The words were not cruel. That made them harder to dismiss. Dominic placed the folded map on the table. "What am I missing?" Claire looked at him for a moment as if deciding whether the question was genuine. Then she pointed toward the main house. "Rafe keeps a generator beneath the west wing. The security cameras switch to local power when the main line fails." Grant nodded. "So cutting the property power does nothing. It tells him someone has arrived. What controls the local system?" "A panel inside the laundry room. Can it be reached from outside?" "Number." Dominic studied the layout. Claire continued. "There is another problem. Rafe does not sleep in the east bedroom when he expects violence." "Where does he go? The boathouse?" Grant looked toward the edge of the map. "Why 2 boats? Open water. A hidden road behind the fuel shed. He can choose either exit within seconds." Dominic pointed toward the narrow dock. Which boat does he use? The black one. Fuel always full. Claire paused. The white boat is kept nearly empty. Rafe does not trust his men not to use it. Dominic looked at her. How do you know I reviewed the fuel invoices? Even exhausted, bruised, and wrapped in a blanket inside a stranger's house, Claire still saw the world through patterns. Dominic picked up the map again. Cole stays here with you. No. His eyes lifted. Claire's expression hardened. You do not get to remove me from the only part of this I can control. You are not going to the compound. I did not say I was. Then what are you asking? A secure line. Access to the copied files. A direct channel to Grant. Grant looked at Dominic. She may see something we do not. Dominic disliked the idea immediately, not because it was impractical, because it kept Claire connected to the danger. She saw the objection in his face. If Mason changed the rotations, I can compare the movements against Rafe's payroll and vehicle records. I know which men sleep in which buildings. I know who drinks. I know who leaves his post to call his girlfriend after midnight. You should be resting. I rested for 4 months behind a locked door. Dominic's jaw tightened. Claire lowered her voice. Let me help end this. The room became quiet. Dominic wanted to say no. The word rose naturally, supported by every instinct he had spent years obeying. Protecting someone meant placing them behind walls, controlling access, and removing them from the decisions that could hurt them. Claire had already told him what that kind of protection felt like. Dominic looked at Grant. Set up the secure line. Claire's shoulders loosened by a fraction. Grant nodded and left. Dominic remained beside the table. If the doctor tells you to stop, you stop. Claire almost smiled. You lasted less than a minute before issuing another order. It is a condition. Conditions are orders wearing better clothes. Then call it a request. Her eyes stayed on his. All right. Dominic placed the revolver closer to her chair. Lock the door after we leave. I know. Do not open it unless Cole confirms the name. I know. If the estate loses power, the safe room is behind the bookcase in the library. Claire studied him. How many hidden rooms does this house have? Enough. That answer is becoming irritating. It was irritating the first time. The faintest warmth passed between them and disappeared. Dominic reached for his jacket. Claire caught the edge of his sleeve. He stopped. Her fingers did not touch his skin. Come back alive, she said. The words were quiet, not forgiveness, not love, only a request from a woman who had every reason to make none. Dominic looked at her hand. You said I still owe you more than revenge. You do. I intend to pay. He walked out before the promise could become larger than he deserved. The convoy left the estate 40 minutes later. 3 dark vehicles moved west through the storm. Headlights cut across flooded roads and empty intersections as Miami thinned behind them. Dominic rode in the first vehicle with Grant and Cole. 3 more men followed in the second car. The third carried medical supplies, spare weapons, and equipment for crossing the marsh. No one spoke until the city lights disappeared. Grant studied the map on a tablet. The nearest paved access is 3 miles from the north boundary. We stop before it, Dominic said. The marsh could slow us. It will slow anyone following. Cole looked into the mirror. What about Mason? He wants us inside the property, Dominic said. He will not leave before he knows whether the trap worked. Grant adjusted the radio in his ear. Claire is connected. A soft hiss passed through the speaker. Then her voice entered the car. I can hear you. Dominic looked toward the small device clipped near the dashboard. You should be lying down. I am lying down. Grant gave Dominic a brief look. Claire continued. I have the transaction files open. Mason sent Rafe 3 payments today. For what? The first went to a catering company. The second went to a private security firm. The third went to a fuel supplier near Homestead. How much fuel? Enough for a boat to reach the Bahamas. Dominic looked at Grant. Rafe plans to leave. Or wants us to think he does, Grant said. Claire's voice remained steady. The payment was made 6 hours before I reached the airport. He planned the exit before he knew I escaped. Then the boat was always part of the murder plan, Dominic said. If the dinner attack failed, yes. Cole turned onto a narrow county road bordered by dark fields. Rainwater filled the ditches. Lightning showed the distant line of the Everglades. Dominic watched the road disappear into blackness. Mason believes Rafe will protect him. Claire answered through the radio. Mason believes everyone needs him. Grant looked at the transaction files on his tablet. That may be why he betrayed you. No, Dominic said. He betrayed me because he wanted what he believed I would never give him. The organization, the chair. Claire's voice softened. You trusted him for 7 years, and he knew you did. Dominic said nothing. The vehicles stopped beneath a stand of cypress trees 2 miles from Rafe's property. The team continued on foot. Rain had slowed to a fine mist, but the marsh held the storm. Water reached Dominic's knees within the first 100 yards. Mud pulled at his boots. Saw grass scraped against his clothing. Insects rose in clouds whenever the men disturbed the reeds. No one used lights. The sky flashed often enough to reveal the tree line in white fragments. Claire guided them through Grant's radio. The north wall curves east near the storage barn. There is a break in the trees where the ground rises. Grant lifted one fist. The team stopped. Ahead, a faint yellow light appeared between the cypress trunks. Dominic crouched beside him. The storage barn stood beyond the wall. A single bulb burned above the side door. One man smoked beneath it, his rifle resting against a barrel. Another shadow moved near the roofline. Grant whispered 2 guards. Claire's voice came through the radio. The second man should not be there. Can you identify him? Not from where you are. Grant passed the night scope to Dominic. The second man wore a baseball cap and carried a short rifle. He moved with more discipline than the smoker. Private security, Dominic said. The payment Mason sent Claire replied. Rafe had added trained men. Dominic handed the scope back. They reached the cattle gate. Grant's man wrapped the chain with a thick blanket before cutting it. The metal gave with only a muted snap. The team entered one at a time. Dominic moved behind the barn. The first guard never saw Grant approach. A gloved hand closed over his mouth. A blade flashed once beneath his jaw. Grant lowered him into the mud without sound. The second guard turned at the wrong moment. Dominic fired twice. The suppressed shots sounded like hands striking wet cloth. The man fell from the low platform and struck the ground beside the barn. The smoker dropped his cigarette and reached for the rifle. Cole reached him first. Silence returned. Grant examined the dead man's vest. Mason hired professionals. Dominic looked toward the dark outline of the main house. Then we assume every building has them. They entered the barn. A utility vehicle stood beside stacked fuel drums. Keys hung from a board near the workbench. Claire's voice came through the radio. Do not use the red vehicle. Grant stopped beside it. Why? The maintenance files show a damaged brake line. Dominic looked at the black vehicle beside it. This one, it was serviced last month. Cole started the engine. The sound seemed enormous inside the barn. Grant opened the north door. They drove toward the main property with the lights off. The vehicle crossed 200 yards of muddy ground before the first alarm sounded. A red light began flashing above the main house. Grant swore. They saw us. No, Claire said. The barn door has a pressure sensor. Rafe added it after one of his men stole equipment. Gunfire came from the western wall. The first rounds struck the utility vehicle. Grant turned the wheel hard. The vehicle slid across the mud and crashed into a low stone barrier. Dominic hit the ground before it stopped moving. The team scattered behind equipment sheds and concrete troughs. Floodlights ignited across the property. Night vanished. Men opened fire from the west wing and the roof. One of Dominic's men fell before reaching cover. Grant dragged him behind a tractor. He is gone. Dominic fired toward the roof. A guard disappeared behind the ledge. Cole crouched near the utility vehicle, 3 at the west windows, 2 near the gate. Claire spoke quickly through the radio. There is a tool shed 20 feet south of you. Its rear wall connects to the laundry passage. Dominic looked through the rain. The shed stood across an open strip of ground, too far under direct fire. Grant saw the route. I can reach it. No, Dominic said. You need the house. I need my head of security alive. Grant gave a dry laugh. This is a poor time to become sentimental. A round struck the tractor above them. Metal fragments cut across Grant's shoulder. He fell backward. Dominic caught him. Blood darkened Grant's jacket. Entry wound near the collarbone, Cole said. Grant tried to sit. I can move. Dominic pressed a hand against the wound. No. Rafe is leaving. Let him try. Grant stared at him. The old Dominic would have pursued the primary target. He would have calculated one wounded man against the chance to end the war and chosen the larger value. Grant knew it. Dominic knew it. Claire's voice entered the radio. There is a drainage pipe beneath the tractor. It runs to the irrigation basin behind the tool shed. Dominic looked down. A rusted grate sat beneath the rear tire. Cole pulled it loose. The opening was narrow, filled with dark water. Get Grant through, Dominic said. Grant resisted. You cannot lose time on me. Dominic grabbed the front of his vest. You are not a calculation. Grant stopped fighting. Cole entered the pipe first. 2 men lowered Grant after him. Dominic fired toward the west windows until the others disappeared below. Then he followed. The pipe smelled of mud and stagnant water. They crawled through darkness while shots struck the ground above. Grant's breathing became rough. Claire remained on the radio. 15 feet forward. Then turn left at the split. How do you know this? Cole asked. I found irrigation repair bills. Dominic heard pages moving near her microphone. The left side opens behind the shed. They emerged through a broken grate into a narrow space between the shed and a concrete wall. Cole treated Grant's wound while Dominic examined the passage door. It was unlocked. Mason wanted them inside. Dominic opened it anyway. The laundry corridor beyond was empty. The team moved through the house. Rafe's men had concentrated around the outer approaches, expecting the explosives or crossfire to finish the attack before anyone reached the interior. The first guard inside the kitchen died before raising his weapon. The second surrendered. Dominic looked at the man kneeling on the tile. Where is Rafe? The guard swallowed. Boathouse. Mason's study. Dominic handed him to one of Grant's men. Get Grant to the vehicles. Grant caught Dominic's sleeve. Finish it. Dominic nodded once. Then he and Cole moved toward the study. Smoke entered the corridor before they reached the door. Mason stood beside the fireplace feeding documents into the flames. He still wore the same suit from the airport. Mud stained the cuffs of his trousers. A pistol rested on the desk within reach. He looked up when Dominic entered. For 1 second, relief appeared on his face. Then he saw Cole's weapon. You survived. Dominic closed the door behind him. You sound disappointed. Mason looked toward the fire. I told Rafe the channel was too obvious. You told him because Claire knew about it. She should have left the city when you dismissed her. She tried. Mason's jaw tightened. She contacted you. Dominic took another step. You froze her account. It was necessary. You answered her letter. She would have destroyed the cross agreement. You told her I believed she was lying about my child. Mason looked at him. What did you expect me to do? Bring a pregnant former employee into the middle of a merger negotiation. You expected me to thank you. I expected you to remain focused. Dominic stared at the man who had stood at his side for 7 years. $60,000 a month. Mason's expression hardened. That was not why it started. Then explain. My brother owed Calder $500,000. You could have come to me, so you could remind me what your help costs. I never asked you to repay anything. That was worse. Mason's voice rose. You gave me everything and made certain I knew it was yours. The money, the position, the men. I ran your organization while you stood in front of windows pretending you built it alone. You wanted the chair. I earned the chair. Dominic looked at the burning papers. You sold men who trusted you. I made a decision. You used my name to threaten Claire. Mason's mouth tightened. She was a risk. She was carrying my daughter. She was carrying leverage. The room became still. Mason realized too late what he had said. Dominic's voice lowered. That is how Rafe spoke about her. Mason reached toward the desk. Cole raised his weapon. Mason stopped. Rafe is leaving, he said. You can still catch him. You are coming with us. No. Mason moved faster than Cole expected. He seized the pistol and fired through the study window. Glass exploded outward. Dominic struck his arm before the second shot. The weapon fell beneath the desk. Mason drove his shoulder into Dominic's chest. They crashed against the bookcase. For 7 years, Mason had watched Dominic fight. He knew the damaged side of his ribs. He knew which knee had never healed correctly. He attacked both. Dominic absorbed the first blow and blocked the second. Cole moved forward. A shot came through the broken window. Cole fell behind the desk as the round struck the wall. Rafe's men were covering Mason. Mason broke free and ran through the side door. Dominic followed him into the rain. They crossed the courtyard toward the boathouse. Gunfire sounded behind the main building. Grant's remaining men engaged the outer guards. Mason reached the dock first. Rafe stood beside the black boat with a pistol in one hand and a canvas case in the other. His thin face twisted when he saw Dominic. You took your time. Mason stopped beside him. You said the channel would kill him. Rafe glanced at Mason. You said he would use it. Dominic approached slowly. Rain covered the dock in silver. Rafe smiled. Claire always was better with numbers than people. You never understood her. I understood exactly what she was worth. Dominic's expression did not change. She is not worth something. She is someone. Rafe laughed. Now you discover principles. He lifted the canvas case. I have enough records here to tear apart your port, the Cross family, and half the city. Then why are you running? Rafe's smile faded. Mason looked toward the boat. Give me the keys. Rafe ignored him. You abandoned her, Rafe said to Dominic. You left her with nothing. Men like me only enter through doors men like you open. Dominic felt the truth of the words. He did not look away. I opened the door. Rafe seemed surprised. Dominic continued. That does not give you ownership of what you found behind it. Rafe raised his pistol. Dominic fired first. The bullet struck Rafe's hand. His weapon fell onto the dock. Mason lunged for it. Cole fired from the boathouse entrance. The round struck the wood beside Mason's fingers. Do not, Cole said. Mason froze. Rafe staggered toward the boat, clutching his bleeding hand. He jumped inside and reached for the ignition. The engine roared. The black boat pulled away from the dock. Dominic watched it cross 30 feet of dark water. Then the engine coughed. It stopped. Rafe turned the key again. Nothing. Claire's voice sounded in Dominic's radio. The fuel payment was for the white boat. Dominic looked toward the second vessel tied beneath the far side of the dock. Rafe had switched the fuel to prepare his escape, leaving the black boat nearly empty. The current pushed him slowly back toward the reeds. Dominic stepped into the white boat. Cole remained with Mason. The motor started immediately. Dominic crossed the water. Rafe fired with a second weapon hidden beneath his jacket. The bullet struck the windshield. Dominic lowered himself and drove the boat into Rafe's stern. Rafe fell. Dominic boarded before he could rise. They fought on the narrow deck while both boats drifted through the rain. Rafe struck Dominic with the pistol. Pain flashed across his temple. Dominic caught Rafe's wrist and drove it against the railing. The weapon fell into the water. Rafe smiled through blood. "She will never forgive you." Dominic tightened his grip. "She does not owe me forgiveness." The answer erased the smile. Rafe reached for a knife at his belt. Dominic fired twice. Rafe fell against the side of the boat and did not move again. Dominic stood over him, breathing hard. There was no satisfaction, only silence and rain. When he returned to the dock, Mason had Cole at gunpoint. He had recovered Rafe's fallen weapon. Cole's hands were raised. Mason's face had become pale and desperate. "Put yours down," he told Dominic. Dominic stepped from the boat. "No, I will kill him. You already decided everyone around you was expendable." Mason pressed the weapon closer to Cole's head. "I gave you 7 years. You sold every one of them. I kept this organization alive. You tried to hand my daughter to a man who called her an asset." Mason's eyes moved toward the dark road beyond the boathouse. He was searching for an exit. There was none. "You destroyed everything for Claire." Dominic shook his head. "No, you destroyed yourself when you decided every person had a price." Mason's attention flickered toward the water. Cole moved. The gun fired. The shot went wide. Dominic fired once. Mason fell beside the dock. For several seconds, only the water moved. Cole looked down at the man who had given him orders for years. Then he looked at Dominic. "Grant is stable. The team has the main house." Dominic lowered his weapon. "Secure the records. Take every phone account book and computer." His radio crackled. At first there was only static. Then Claire's voice came through, strained and uneven. "Dominic." He touched the receiver. "I am here." A breath caught on the other end. The contractions started. Dominic went completely still. "Where is Dr. Shaw?" No answer came. "Claire." The line remained silent. Dominic stood on the rain-soaked dock with the radio pressed against his ear. Rafe lay motionless in the boat behind him. Mason was dead at his feet. Men moved through the compound, securing rooms and gathering weapons, but every sound seemed to come from a great distance. "Claire, answer me." Static filled the receiver. Then another voice broke through. "Dominic, this is Cole." Dominic turned sharply. Cole stood 10 feet away, one hand touching the receiver in his ear. "I lost her too." Dominic was already moving. "Get the cars." Grant's voice came through from the main house, weak but steady. "The property is secure. Leave 2 men. Everyone else moves. Dominic, the records. Take what fits. Burn nothing." He crossed the courtyard at a run. Rainwater covered the stone, turning the path into a black mirror. His temple throbbed where Rafe had struck him. Blood moved beneath his collar, warm against the cold rain, but he barely felt it. The only image in his mind was Claire inside the sitting room, one hand pressed to her stomach, trying to reach him, while pain closed around her. Cole caught up beside him. "Dr. Shaw was in the East Wing when we left." Then why did Claire call alone? The signal may have dropped. Or someone cut it. Cole did not answer. They reached the vehicles. Grant was carried out on a stretcher by 2 members of the team. His face had gone pale, but his eyes were open. "You are not driving," Dominic said. Grant managed a tired smile. "I had no intention of volunteering." Dominic stopped beside him. "You stayed alive. You made it difficult not to." The words reached Dominic more deeply than Grant understood. He placed one hand against the side of the stretcher. "Get him to the hospital." Grant looked toward the compound. Mason gone. Rafe gone. Grant closed his eyes for a moment. Then, go home. Dominic entered the first vehicle with Cole. The convoy left the Everglades before the rain had fully stopped. No one spoke during the first 10 minutes. Cole drove faster than he had on the way in. Headlights cut through flooded roads and low fog. The dark fields gave way slowly to warehouses, service stations, and sleeping neighborhoods. Dominic tried Claire again. No answer. He called the estate security room. A guard answered immediately. "Mr. Vale, where is Claire? With Dr. Shaw in the sitting room. Why is her phone disconnected?" "We lost power for 20 seconds. The backup system restored most of the house, but the private network is still restarting. Was there a breach?" "No, sir. The perimeter is secure." Dominic closed his eyes once. "Put Dr. Shaw on." There was movement on the line. Then the doctor answered. "She is stable." The pressure in Dominic's chest loosened only slightly. "The contractions. They have slowed. Is the baby safe?" "The heartbeat is strong." Why did the contractions start? Stress, dehydration, exhaustion, and more fear than her body knows how to carry. Dominic looked through the windshield. "Is she in labor?" "Not now. Not now is not an answer. It is the only honest one I have. She needs observation. If the contractions return, or her condition changes, I am taking her to the hospital. I will arrange security. You will arrange nothing until she agrees." Dominic heard the warning in the doctor's voice. He forced himself to breathe. "Ask her." "I already did. She agreed to 2 guards outside the hospital if we need to go. No one inside her room without permission." "Understood." Dr. Shaw became quiet. "She asked whether you were alive." Dominic looked down at the blood staining his sleeve. "What did you tell her that I did not know?" The line ended. Cole glanced toward him. "She is safe. For now. That is more than she had this morning." Dominic stared at the road. It should never have reached this morning. Cole did not offer comfort. That was why Dominic trusted him. By the time they reached Biscayne Bay, the eastern sky had begun to lighten. The storm was moving out over the ocean. Clouds broke above the city, revealing thin strips of bruised purple and gray. Water covered the estate drive in shallow pools. An ambulance waited beneath the front entrance. Its lights were off. Dominic left the car before Cole stopped completely. Inside the house was silent. A lamp burned in the corridor. 2 security guards stood near the sitting room door. Both moved aside when Dominic approached. The door was closed. He reached for the handle, then stopped. Claire had asked for control over who entered. Dominic knocked. No answer came. He knocked again, softer. Dr. Shaw opened the door. She looked at his wet clothes, the blood on his face, and the weapon still secured beneath his jacket. "Leave the gun outside." Dominic removed it and placed it on a table in the corridor. Now the knife. He took the knife from his belt and set it beside the gun. Dr. Shaw studied him. "You look like you need a doctor. I need to see Claire. She is resting. Is she awake?" "Yes." A voice came from inside. "Let him in." Dr. Shaw stepped aside. Claire lay on the long sofa near the fireplace. Pillows supported her back and legs. A medical monitor stood beside her, displaying the rhythm of the baby's heartbeat. The sound filled the room. Steady, quick, alive. Dominic stopped just inside the doorway. Claire's face was pale. Her hair had come loose around her shoulders. One hand rested beneath the blanket over her stomach. Her eyes moved across him slowly. They stopped at the blood on his collar. "Is that yours?" "Some of it." Dr. Shaw gave him a look. "Sit before you fall." "I am not going to fall. You men always say that directly before becoming a problem." Claire's mouth moved faintly. Dominic crossed the room but stopped several feet from the sofa. "May I come closer?" Claire looked at him. The question surprised her. Then she nodded. Dominic sat on the edge of the chair beside her. He did not touch her. For a moment, neither spoke. The baby's heartbeat continued between them. Rafe Claire asked, "Dead. Mason dead." She closed her eyes. Relief passed over her face, followed by something heavier. "Grant, alive. He is going to the hospital." Claire opened her eyes again. "You stayed with him." Dominic knew what she was asking. "Yes." "You could have followed Rafe." "Yes." "But you stayed." He was wounded. "That never stopped you from choosing the larger objective before." Dominic looked toward the fire. "There was a time when I would have called him the acceptable loss. And tonight, he was Grant." Claire watched him carefully. That answer seemed to matter more than any promise. Dr. Shaw checked the monitor. "The contractions have stopped for now. Claire needs quiet." Dominic looked at her. "What caused them?" Dr. Shaw crossed her arms. "I already told you. I want to hear it in the room." Claire answered. "My body believed I was still running." Dominic lowered his eyes. Dr. Shaw adjusted the blanket around Claire's legs. "She has not been running for only 2 days. Her body has been preparing for danger for months. It does not know the danger is over." Claire looked toward the dark windows. "Is it over?" Dominic considered the question before answering. "Rafe is dead. Mason is dead. Rafe's lieutenant was killed at the compound. Grant's men control the property. That is not what I asked." "No." Dominic leaned forward, resting his forearms against his knees. "His network still exists. The people he paid still exist. The accounts and routes still exist." Claire's expression tightened. "So, they will come. Some may." Dr. Shaw looked at him sharply. Dominic continued before fear could take hold. "But we have the records. I am not sending men into every house connected to Rafe. We will freeze the accounts, expose the officials, and break the roots." Claire studied him. "You are going to use the evidence, with your permission." The phrase remained awkward in his mouth. Claire noticed. "The originals stay with me." "Yes." "No file is shared without my approval." "Yes." "You do not decide which parts of my story become useful to your organization." "I understand." Claire looked at the monitor. "You are saying yes very easily. I spent 8 months saying no when I should have listened." Dr. Shaw closed her medical bag. "I am going to check the ambulance crew. 5 minutes. No arguments, no stress, and no plans for armed retaliation." She looked directly at Dominic. "Especially from you." When the door closed, quiet returned. Claire watched the fire. "You smell like smoke, and swamp water, and blood." "Yes." She looked at his bruised temple. "Did he hurt you?" "Not enough. Do not say that." Dominic turned toward her. "Why?" "Because pain is not proof that you cared." The words settled between them. Dominic nodded. "You are right." Claire looked almost frustrated. "Stop agreeing with everything." "I am not agreeing. I am listening." "That is new." "Yes." The baby moved beneath the blanket. Claire's hand shifted. Dominic noticed. She kicked once. He looked toward her stomach. Claire saw the question in his face. After a moment, she took his hand. The contact was careful. She placed his palm against the curve beneath the blanket. Dominic went still. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then a firm movement pressed against his hand. His breath caught. Claire watched him. "That is your daughter." Dominic looked at her. The word felt impossible. Daughter. A human life had existed beyond his knowledge while he arranged dinners, contracts, and security cameras. She had grown inside the woman he had abandoned. She had survived a locked room, hunger, fear, and violence. Another kick moved beneath his palm. Dominic's eyes lowered. "I am sorry," he whispered. Claire's fingers remained over his hand. "She cannot hear apologies yet. I was not speaking only to her." Claire withdrew her hand. Dominic removed his slowly. "You said an apology was not redemption," he said. "It is not." "I know." "Then what happens now?" Dominic looked at her. "You tell me." The answer made her silent. He continued, "You choose where you stay. You choose the doctor. You choose who knows about the baby. You decide what happens to the evidence. You decide whether I am allowed in her life. And if I leave Florida, I will make sure you can leave safely. If I never come back—" Dominic's face tightened, but his voice remained steady. "I will not stop you." Claire studied him for any sign of manipulation. "What do you want?" The question was simple. It was also the most dangerous one she could have asked. Dominic looked toward the pale light forming beyond the windows. "I want you to stay." Claire's expression closed slightly. He continued before the request could sound like a command. "I want to know my daughter. I want the chance to earn a place in her life. I want the chance to earn one in yours. You do not get all of that because you want it. I know. You may never get it. I know." Claire looked down. "But that is what you want." "Yes." The door opened. Dr. Shaw returned. "We are going to the hospital for imaging." Claire's shoulders tightened. "Now, the contractions stopped, but I want your throat examined and the baby monitored properly." Dominic stood. "I will come." Claire looked at him. "You can come to the hospital." He waited. "But you stay outside the room unless I ask for you." "Yes." "And no armed men frightening the nurses. 2 guards in plain clothes." "1." Dominic hesitated. Claire raised an eyebrow. "1," he agreed. The hospital examination lasted 3 hours. Dominic remained in a private waiting area with dried blood on his shirt and a clean bandage across his temple. Cole brought him fresh clothes, but Dominic did not change until Claire's nurse told him the smell might disturb other patients. At 8 in the morning, Evelyn Cross called. Dominic answered from an empty consultation room. "My father is beside me," she said. Victor Cross spoke next. "You embarrassed my daughter and abandoned a public agreement. Your merger documents were sold to Rafe Calder. I have seen 1 page. You will receive every page related to Cross operations after Claire approves the release." Victor's voice hardened. "Claire Bennett does not decide what I receive. She built the evidence. This is your organization. It concerns what was done to her." Evelyn interrupted. "Father, the handwriting on the document is yours. Mason had access. The breach is real." Victor became quiet. Dominic continued. "The engagement is over. You do not dictate that after leaving my daughter on a runway." Evelyn's voice remained calm. "The engagement was already over when our confidential files entered Calder's hands." Victor exhaled. "We will discuss the business arrangement separately." "Yes," Dominic said. "You will compensate us for the breach." "I will compensate you for losses caused by my organization. I will not pay for Mason's betrayal twice." Victor ended the call without saying goodbye. Evelyn remained on the line. "You lost the expansion." I know. You spent 8 months building it. I know. Do you regret it? Dominic looked through the consultation room window. Claire sat beyond the glass while a nurse adjusted the monitor around her stomach. No. Evelyn followed his silence. Then perhaps this is the first honest negotiation you have made. The line ended. Claire returned to the estate shortly before noon. The baby was healthy. Her ankle was sprained. Her throat would heal, though Dr. Shaw warned that the deeper damage would not appear on any scan. Dominic gave Claire the east wing. He did not call it hers again. He asked whether she wanted it. She said yes. That afternoon, he brought her a folder containing documents for an independent trust in their daughter's name. Claire would control the money. Dominic could not withdraw it, redirect it, or use it to influence where she lived. She read the first page. You prepared this without asking. Dominic sat across from her. Yes. Claire closed the folder. His old instinct urged him to explain. Instead, he said, What do you want changed? She looked at him. All of it. Dominic nodded. Then we start again. 4 months passed. Claire remained at the estate, though not in Dominic's rooms. Her daughter was born on a bright Miami morning after a night of heavy rain. Claire named her Lily Bennett. Dominic did not ask for the Vale name. He visited when invited. He left when Claire needed quiet. He learned how to warm bottles, fasten tiny clothes, and walk through dark rooms without waking a sleeping child. He discovered that Lily stopped crying when he spoke in the low voice that once terrified men across the city. Claire established her own forensic accounting company using money she earned from releasing selected evidence to federal investigators and private firms. Her first major client was Evelyn Cross. The two women never became friends, but they respected each other. One evening, Dominic stood in the estate kitchen with Lily asleep against his chest. Claire entered and leaned against the doorway. You made the formula too warm. Dominic tested the bottle against his wrist. It is acceptable. She is 4 months old. She does not care about your standards. He looked down at the sleeping child. She seems calm. She is planning something. She gets that from you. Claire walked closer and adjusted the blanket around Lily. Dominic watched her face. I meant what I said at the hospital. Claire did not look up. You said many things. When I asked you to stay, I stayed. You stayed in this house. She raised her eyes. What are you asking? Dominic held Lily carefully between them. Whether there is a place for me in your life beyond this room. Claire was silent. Dominic waited. He did not fill the silence with promises, pressure, or a decision made on her behalf. Finally, she said, There might be. He let out a slow breath. But this time, Claire continued, You do not stand with your back to me. Dominic turned fully toward her. I will not. Claire took the bottle from his hand. Good. Start by fixing this. A quiet laugh left him. Outside, the lights of Port Miami shimmered across Biscayne Bay. Once Dominic had believed strength meant cutting away everything an enemy could use against him. Now he understood that Claire was not his weakness. She was a woman who had survived him, survived Rafe, and returned only when she was free to choose. Her trust was not part of his empire. It could not be seized, inherited, or protected by armed men. It had to be earned each day. So Dominic remained where she could see him holding their daughter while Claire prepared another bottle. This time, when she looked at him, he did not turn away.